friends, how are ya? Welcome back to my channel for another chatty, sit down, honest, candid, conversational video, kind of podcast format in a sense. I'm excited for today's video because this is the first video that's coming out in March for me. If you don't know this, I am a March baby. My birthday's in March and I am turning 25 this month. And so I thought it would be kind of fun, just as a way to kind of recap and look back on this, to make a video of 25 life lessons I've learned by the age of 25. And I would say that 24 of these lessons I've learned within the last 6 months. We've done a lot of growing, thinking, reflecting, and just getting through hard challenges the last 6 to 8 months. And most of these lessons come from those challenges. As I have realizations and as I learn lessons, I will share them in my vlogs and go much more into depth about them. So if you're part of the vlog fam, you might have already heard me come to some of these realizations, and this is just going to be kind of putting everything I've learned into one succinct little video in no particular order. Also, I do just want to say, every time I plan a sit-down chatty video, it rains. I'm still not used to Texas weather and how just unpredictable it can be. So yet again, sorry if the lighting gets a little wonky in this video. You can just, you can just listen. Okay, I'm gonna pull up my list and let's get into it. Yet again, these are in no particular order. Some of my favorite, biggest realizations are sprinkled throughout the middle and the end of this list. So this is completely randomized, but a big, big, big lesson I learned. This is number 1, is just trust your gut instinct. I had some very specific gut instincts early on in my previous relationship and just kind of about life in general that I completely disregarded and ended up coming true anyways. I'm going to listen to it because it has those feelings for a reason. Maybe it's picked up on subtextual things or things that I don't want to admit to myself, and it's something I'm going to be tuning into a lot more in the future. This is a recent realization. It says there's such a thing as healthy anger. I also wrote, anger doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to be evaluated. I was terrified of anger. I thought it was a dirty, bad emotion that I should never feel. And I recently came to the realization that healthy anger can give you the courage to stand up for yourself or others. Anger is a feeling and emotion that God feels and that God gives us to feel. And if it lingers or if it's misguided, it can very easily become unhealthy. But I thought that unhealthy was the only type of anger there is. Anger doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to be evaluated and used for good and for action instead of used for resentment and bitterness in your heart. Having hard conversations is easier than the alternative. The alternative is just ignoring them and just hoping that they fix themselves. I've always been a little, very afraid of confrontation, and I kind of hope people will just pick up if I'm upset, or they'll just become a better person on their own without me having to say, hey, this is what you did and this hurt me and this is why. The fact of the matter is, letting those things go unsaid typically doesn't fix the problem. In fact, it typically makes you deal with the problem for much longer than just having an honest and open conversation up front, getting it out there, and beginning to work on it. 4, even if your biggest fears come true, at least you can know you will grow from it. I am now less fearful of other big fears because now that I've gone through one of my biggest fears, I've realized that I am stronger because of it. Yes, it sucks. It sucks a lot. It's hurtful. It's heartbreaking. It's difficult. I can look back and say I like myself better now than I did previously. And that's made me less fearful for other bad things happening to me. Some people make friendships harder than they need to be, and you don't have to tolerate that. I think friendships are good for accountability and for honest conversations, but there's few people, very, very few, but there are some people that try to make friendships complicated. And I've realized that my very best friends, my long-term friends, are the ones where there's just a mutual respect and understanding that we love each other and we are there for each other if we're ever needed, but that there doesn't have to be unnecessary dramatics. I had a very specific experience when I was 19 where I was so worried about keeping a specific friend happy that I let myself be very manipulated and let my needs come last. And my life was so much less stressful when I just distanced myself from that person. So that's been a lesson that I've had to learn as a people pleaser, that sometimes pleasing people isn't the way to go, most of the time, actually. 6, make yourself open to conversation. This has been a lesson I've learned moving to a new city and living alone. Beautiful things, beautiful friendships can happen if you are aware of making yourself open, whether that's mentally to someone approaching you or putting yourself into situations where conversations will naturally happen. Like for me, it's hanging out at my favorite coffee spot, or going to a class, or even just like making eye contact with your neighbors as you pass them in the hallway. I've already met some people that I can tell are going to be very long-term friends and important people in my life in the last couple months by adopting that mentality, which I didn't really have living in LA. So I feel like that's been a cool lesson to learn and to already see like the fruits of that. This is for all of my other fellow Enneagram 3s out there. Your value is not determined by your achievements. I talked about how I think having a lack of appreciation and affection in my previous marriage led me to being hyper aware of my achievements in order to try to find some value in myself by what I was accomplishing, or how much money I could potentially earn, or whatever achievements mean to you. Now I have realized that that definitely has no tie to my value, and being able to step away from achievements in order to prove value to myself has led me to actually enjoy growing and building something. Because the reason I am growing and building it is from a more genuine place than it would have been if I had been trying to hit certain numbers or goals or analytics. 8, you are worthy of affection being reciprocated. This is something that feels very vulnerable to say out loud. My mentality in relationships previously has been to never think about yourself and what you can get out of a relationship, but to just think about how you can be there for the other person. I thought that was the formula for success. And it is, so long as the other person has that same mentality. But I kind of did not think I was worthy of asking for affection. And I'm not talking grand gestures. I'm just talking everyday, mundane affection. I now know that that is important and I do deserve it. And in the future, I'm going to ask for it or just move away from a relationship if I feel like that's going to be lacking. This is an interesting life lesson that I've learned. You see what everyone has, but not what everyone sacrifices. Everything has a sacrifice. Even if we're going to talk like, let's talk super superficial for a moment. It's really easy to look around you and see everything that everybody has. Like, I remember having this thought of like, people my age own Teslas and are buying houses and have like really nice gym memberships and amazing outfits, and like, how are they doing this? And then I took a step back and I was like, okay, my friend that bought a Tesla lives in a 1-bedroom apartment and like doesn't really go out, and like that was his splurge. My friend that bought a house like shares a car with her spouse and makes sacrifices elsewhere to be able to afford that house. What you want in life is a choice, and you cannot have it all. And I think as humans, we look around and we see what everybody chose and we assume everybody has it all. So that's like at a superficial level. But even if it comes to like, this person has an incredible marriage and relationship with their partner, like how did they do that? They maybe made some sacrifices. They maybe had to cut out some things that they enjoyed in their schedule to prioritize their spouse, or have those hard conversations that are scary that you don't want to have in order to grow that bond deeper. And it was like a realization I recently had that made everything make sense and everybody feel much more human to me. This is a realization that I've had within the last few weeks, and it's true friends hold others accountable for their actions if they're being hurtful to others. I have some friends that knew of hurtful, shady things that someone was doing to me and did not have a conversation with their best friend saying, hey, this is not cool, you should not be doing this. And I realized that that makes those friends not really true friends to me. And now I vow to myself that if one of my true best friends is doing something shady, manipulative, or hurtful to someone else, I'm gonna step up, because that's my responsibility as their friend, to have those accountable conversations. And I guess it on a bigger scale is similar to that saying where it's, if you're silent, you're on the side of the oppressor, which has been a huge part of conversations in terms of like racial injustice. And I'm realizing that that same sentiment can be applied to a lot of other areas as well. So that's a realization and a life lesson that I've recently learned. 11, block them. Block them. Whatever that means to you. For me, it's if you're looking and seeking out hurtful things you don't want to see. I've blocked people, I've deleted apps, I've blocked websites, I've just blocked things that I know I'm going to be tempted to look at and are going to hurt me. On the reverse, and probably a more common thing, is if somebody is in your DMs, in your comments, saying mean things, or even if you just watch someone's stories and that makes you feel lesser than, mute them, block them. You are a sum of what you're putting into your brain and your heart and your soul. So we don't need that to be a part of it. You can't plan life. You can just try your best to be prepared, and then don't worry beyond that. I think we do have a responsibility to prepare. Me, something that I've always been very diligent about is like saving for retirement and like being mindful of my future, because I want to be prepared for worst case scenario. I don't want to worry beyond what is out of my control, because you really cannot predict, you cannot control life. So many things are just out of your hands. So you can do your best to be prepared, but worrying beyond that does no good. I got this from a devotional recently. It said, "You have nothing to lose by believing the best." Isn't that cool? Believing the best in other people, believing the best in yourself and in your future. Maybe it's not true, but you have nothing to lose by believing it. It will only change your perspective, which is going to make your heart feel a little bit better about the situation. Like, let's take this at a very surface level. Very, very simple example. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You could be like, "You little," or you can believe the best in them. Maybe, the example I always go to in my mind is maybe their wife is in labor. I don't know why that's where my mind goes, but maybe they just genuinely didn't know. Maybe they are having a terrible day and they're distracted and they're just trying to get home to their kids. Like, you don't know, and you have nothing to lose by believing the best. 14, people can tell when you're not being genuine. I learned this right here on this little website. I knew my life was really falling apart the first 2/3 of 2021, but I didn't want to share that. And my job was to share my life. And I am a positive person, so I was really, really trying to lean into that without being like, "Hey guys, my marriage is falling apart. My health is falling apart. I feel very lost in my career right now. Everything's falling apart." I didn't want to be that person. So I just pushed through it, and people could tell. People could tell I was not being myself. I was not being genuine and authentic. And I think it put a bad taste in people's mouth. So that kind of feeds into my next point, which is 15, and that's being vulnerable is freeing. It feels so much heavier to me to have something on my heart and to not share it than to just share it. When you share something vulnerable, you own it. You have possession over that, and it doesn't control you. When I'm not vulnerable, I kind of feel like I'm hiding a secret, and it feels heavier. So being vulnerable is freeing. This was also from a recent talk at church. It said, "The voices you listen to determine your future." Take that how you will. Whether it's actual people speaking into your life, whether it's the voices in your head, or whether it's what you're consuming in terms of media and podcasts and movies and TV and books, whatever that is, the voices you listen to very much determine your future. It determines how you think and how you perceive the world, which determines the decisions you make, which determines the path that you're on, which determines where you end up. Really blows my mind if I think about that one too long. This is a lesson I know that I've yet to really implement and learn, and that's let people do things for you. I don't know why I'm so bad at this. For me, letting someone do something for me is so vulnerable. I think it makes me feel like a failure, like I'm incapable of doing it by myself, and I think it makes me feel like I am a burden to someone, that they had to take time out of their day to help me with something, or that they had to spend money to do something kind for me. And I realize and I recognize it's fulfilling for another person to be able to do something for you, or to be able to treat you in some way, or buy you dinner, or help you with an errand. And I don't know why I really struggle with that mental hurdle. It's good growth for me, and I know it probably makes that person happy as well. 18, we all know this. It's a lesson that I have to tell myself every day, but mean people aren't happy with their life. I feel like I don't even need to elaborate on that. It's something I have to repeat to myself whenever I get those messages, those comments. If you've gotten emails, I don't know how people manage this, but those mean people, they're just not happy with their life. And that puts it all into perspective. 19, don't overcommit, but also don't undercommit. This is kind of, we could count this as part of this point. It's that it is much better to say no to something than to say yes and resent whoever you said yes to or whatever you said yes to, because they can feel that resentment. So I'm trying to learn to not overcommit so that I can show up in a healthy way and in a genuine way to where I actually enjoy committing to whatever I committed to. Find your comfort threshold and see what happens when you push beyond it. This is another realization I had within a vlog, is like, I've gone through so much change in the last 6 months that things that would have made me uncomfortable previously, I don't even have the capacity to feel uncomfortable by it anymore. It's like everything's new and different. So why am I going to get stressed out about this one inconvenience or this one new experience I'm going to try, or saying yes to a coffee with a complete stranger that used to like make me kind of uncomfortable, but now it just feels like another day. And I like being in this space of being beyond my uncomfort threshold. And even when life slows down and becomes normal again, like when I fit and find my routine, find my core community, I still want to challenge myself to find that uncomfort threshold and see what happens when I push beyond, because I've realized that's where all my growth has been occurring. I don't think growth happens at a noticeable pace when you're comfortable. 21, you don't have to earn love. Relationships aren't transactional. This goes back into A, letting people do things for you. B, your achievements aren't tied to your value. And there's another one that this kind of goes into as well. You're worthy of affection. That's the one it is. I feel like I kind of have to prove to people around me sometimes that I have earned their love by doing things for them, by giving them things, giving them gifts. I love to give gifts. And I sometimes have to take a step back and I'm like, are you doing this because you want to show that like you have fulfilled your transactional side of this relationship? Because if so, that's not healthy. I fall into the space of giving instead of receiving. But I need to be comfortable with the idea that someone can do something for me and I don't have to do something back for them in order for that to be earned. I feel like I phrased that very poorly. This is why we love these videos. They are just a word vomit train. This is something kind of less deep, but for all of my other self-employed friends out there, or entrepreneurial friends, or friends that are just trying to build something, is outsource what you can, because your time is valuable. I used to get very stressed out about the financial aspect of outsourcing, things that make sense to outsource. But I've realized that my time and just the ability to be present with people is so much more valuable than the money I would be saving by doing everything myself. So I've really given myself permission to outsource more in this season of life. And I think that I've been able to be a much more present friend in person and more spontaneous too, while still being able to fulfill my obligations, which has been nice. 23, it is up to you to use bad situations for good. Good will naturally come of bad things. Bad things will naturally happen in everybody's life, hard things, difficult things, but it's up to you to really be intentional with how can I take this bad situation and use it for good. That's why I've been really leaning into just being open online. I could very much do all this on my own and just kind of like sit in my feelings and not share anything, but I've been trying to be as intentional as possible of saying, God gave me this challenge, God put me in this season. How can I try my best to use this for something bigger than myself? And for me, just with the nature of my job, I've discovered that that is pushing myself to be incredibly transparent so that hopefully other people will feel less alone in what they're going through. And it has its downsides because you're much more open to criticisms as well, but it's something that I'm adamant on. I want to make good of the bad things, so I'm going to choose it. 24, this is simple. Tell people you appreciate them. Anybody and everybody, if you think a thought, say it. If it's a good, uplifting thought, the person that you're saying it to would love to hear it, and it might mean so much more to them than you recognize. I don't know why, it kind of feels scary to like compliment people sometimes. Whether that's on a superficial level of I love your outfit, or if that's on a deep level of I really appreciate you and your friendship and I see what you're doing for me and for everyone around you and I think you're an incredible person. Either way, it's kind of scary, but it really builds a deeper connection and a bond, and I think that the person that hears it will think about that all day and will change their posture. I think it's really cool, and it's something that I've been trying to do a lot more with people around me. Last but not least, 25, we're gonna end this with a little bit of a metaphor, I suppose. That's renovating a house requires a demo day. If you're renovating a house, you are gonna have to tear some things down. You're gonna have to tear some things out. It's gonna be messy. You're gonna get sweaty. It's a whole process, but it's necessary in order to build something back up, especially if you want to build something nicer and better and sturdier back up. And I feel like I'm in the demo day of my life currently, where I'm just tearing so much down, tearing so much out, throwing it out. I recognize that it's the hard, dirty work that needs to be done because I'm so excited to build up something beautiful and something that's going to last a long time and just be special. And that's a realization I've had. I mean, think about it. Every HGTV show you watch, there's gonna be a beautiful reveal at the end. There's gonna have to be some ugly demo day stuff in between. So I feel like that is a big lesson and very appropriate to end on as the 25th lesson I've learned so far in my 25 years. Let's be honest, I've probably learned 1,000 lessons in the last year. Those are just the 25 first ones that came to mind. So I would love to know some lessons that you've learned so far, maybe some big themes in your life. I just really value the wisdom of this community and the honest and open conversations that are sometimes facilitated within the comments or within the Facebook group or whatever that is. Y'all are all very wise and very introspective, and it's super cool, and I'm honored to have these conversations with you and share my heart with you. Thanks for being around for my quarter of a century life. We got a couple more weeks till it's my birthday, but already thinking about 25, and I feel like good things are around the corner. I feel like a big shift is happening, and I'm excited. I love y'all. Thank you for spending your day with me. I will see you in, I think, a vlog very soon. I hope you have the best rest of your day. I love spending time with you. Bye.
So give me a sign. Give me a sign. Oh, give me a sign. Baby, give me a sign. Give me one more talking to you, and here we go again. Staying up all night to see if you've been texting me. Where do we go from here?